Hi, this is Karl with another Relax, Focus, Succeed video. Today I want to talk about focusing on what you can control. A while back I did a piece with the basic theme, you control almost nothing. So I want to talk about, well, okay, what do you control? What can you affect? A lot of people have a great deal of anxiety today about so many things. I'm just reading a book about the anxious generation and how there's so much attention being paid to things that might go wrong, even though they probably won't go wrong. And something can be a microscopic, remote possibility, but if it's in the news again and again and again and again, people believe that's about to happen, or they believe that it's worse than it's ever been. Well, I was watching the play Hamilton with a friend recently, and so I went and reread Hamilton's biography, and then I reread biographies about George Washington and James Madison, and some of the people of that era. That's kind of what I studied in grad school. And it's hard to believe how divisive they were. They had a great theme before the Constitution was signed and approved. As soon as it was in place, well, then they started fighting amongst each other. And the divisiveness and the lies and the threats and so forth, it was over the top. It was literally unbelievable. And yet, most of the people are like, look, at the end of the day, am I better off with the king or am I better off with the president? Where do I stand? And those kinds of feelings don't go away in a short period of time. I think it was Mark Twain who said, most of the things I ever worried about in my life, well, they just didn't happen. And that's true for all of us. We worry and worry and worry. And it's interesting because it means that we're spending our time right now in this moment thinking about the future and about things that might go wrong. We could be thinking about the future and things that might go right, but for some reason, there's kind of this natural tendency to be worried about things. A certain level of anxiety is actually good. In terms of evolution, it's what keeps human beings alive, thinking about, okay, how could this go wrong? And then I get eaten by a tiger or whatever, right? So, certain element is good, but you also have to focus on and say, well, what can I affect? Because lots of things might happen, but realistically, you don't control very much. Over on the IT side, I try to coach people that, you are an economy of one, by which I mean you as a business owner, you as an individual. Well, you might vote, for example, but you don't actually control the level of taxes. You don't control the global economy, the national economy. You don't control whether or not there's going to be a war in China or Russia or even the United States. You don't control what's going to happen with the economy, the stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the price of, well, anything, right? So you have to just relax and say, look, I could spend my time worrying about all that stuff I don't control. But you could also spend your time worrying about, will it rain tomorrow? Will I have many more weeds in my garden? Am I going to be overrun with insects? Those are all things you could choose to worry about. But when you boil it down, you need to think about, what can I control? And really honestly, I'm just sorry to tell you this, there's no point in worrying about things over which you have no control. Yes, there might be a storm. Yes, your roof might leak. Yes, you might have a lot of insects in your garden next year. But those things are going to happen whether you worry about them or not. And it is okay to turn off the news. It's okay to focus on your family, focus on what's good for you, focus on your immediate environment where you can actually do something, and focus on the positive. It's completely your choice. And yes, as good citizens, we want to be worried about things. But don't spend an exorbitant amount of time taking personally something that you cannot control. You know, I always encourage people, take some quiet time in the morning, plan your day, do a little meditation, do some prayer if that's your thing. But when you're in that quiet time, what you need to do is focus on today. Focus on what you're doing today. Focus on what's in front of you. Watch the sun rise. Watch the sun set. Enjoy a beer on the back porch or the front porch. I was recently looking at some research about, of all things, choking, right? That we spend all this energy making sure that toys are safe so people don't choke, so that kids are safe, so that adults are safe. Things are all labeled all over the place. Choking hazard, choking hazard, choking hazard. Guess what? If you look at the population of the United States, 1960, 1970, 1980, right, all the way up to 2020, every 10 years, take the population of the United States, then take the number of deaths from choking, right? They actually track this stuff. What you're going to find is that it was about 13.5 people per million population in 1960. And it went up and down, up and down, up and down, but it didn't go up much and it didn't go down much. And it was between 13 and 14 people per million population for the entire time. In other words, all of the industrial and commercial worrying about choking has had zero effect on the number of choking deaths. This is unlike things like drunk driving and smoking, where all of our public worrying has in fact improved safety. Choking just happens to be one of those things where everybody took lots of advice, everybody increased their anxiety, everybody paid some attention to it, paid more attention to it than they did before. And over my entire lifetime, there has been zero improvement in the number of people who die from all that worrying and putting all those labels on everything you can possibly imagine and creating an entire sub-industry to worry about this one thing. And it's very, very sad when somebody dies of choking. Do not get me wrong. But it is not a thing that you may ever be faced with, let alone have to deal with. So maybe it's okay to worry a tiny, tiny bit, but don't spend exorbitant amounts of energy worrying about something that is probably never going to happen. And I mentioned earlier, this is your choice. You literally get to choose what you will worry about. It's not an automatic response as a human being to worry about something that got posted on social media, that got mentioned on the radio. You know, it's okay to turn off social media. It's okay to turn off the radio. Think about what you do in your life, and that morning quiet time will, honest to goodness, help you be in the moment. You can literally think about, meditate about, what will I do when somebody mentions something that they think I should worry about? How will I respond? You can choose what your response will be before that moment gets here. And then when something comes up, oh my God, we all have to be worried about this. You can say, I will keep that in mind, but not at the top of my mind, not in the front of my mind, not as the most important thing I'm going to freak out about and lose sleep over. I choose to put that on the back burner. You know, I've mentioned before the reticular activating system. When somebody tells you something, your brain automatically says, oh, is that something I need to pay attention to? And if you say yes, you have literally informed your reticular activating system, this little part in your brain that connects a couple of different sections of your brain. You have told it, this is important to me, please pay attention. And now your reticular activating system is going to go to work thinking about that thing, paying attention to that thing, being hyper-focused on that thing. You can also say, nah, that's not important. You ignore thousands, tens of thousands of things every day, and maybe thousands of things per hour. You can't pay attention to everything in your universe, let alone the whole universe. So your reticular activating system spends a lot of time saying, not important, not important, not important. I'm not going to stop and look in great detail at every single block of concrete on the sidewalk as I drive by. It would take me 100 years to get to work in the morning, right? You don't do that. Your brain flips it off and says, yeah, maybe you should look at that when you're walking, or not at all. So use your brain. All you have to do is tell it, this is what I want to pay attention to, and this is what I don't want to pay attention to. It will follow your instructions, because the same tool that tells you to ignore something is the tool you use to pay attention to something. So just tell it, nah, we're not going to worry about that today. Something to think about. Happy to have your comments and questions. Like it if you like it. Please subscribe to the channel and visit my website at relaxfocussucceed.com. For Relax, Focus, Succeed, this is Karl Palachuk wishing you the best of luck in everything you do.